And there is more football news on this crazy day. Ben Roethlisberger, in a sit-down interview with KDKA-TV in Pittsburgh, said that he admitted that he went too far in publicly criticizing Antonio Brown's route running on Ben's weekly radio show after a Week 12 loss to the Broncos last season. Here's part of what he said. He said, "I took some heat, and deservedly so, for some of the comments on that show, and especially toward him. I genuinely feel bad about that, and am sorry. Did I go too far after that Denver game? Probably." Antonio Brown wasn't having any of that. He had a two-word response, and it isn't the two you were expecting. The two-word response was two-face. So, I ask you, Swagoo, what is your reaction to Roethlisberger's mea culpa, if you will, and AB's response?
In this situation, Roethlisberger is a liar, and AB did some things that were just crazy and out of bounds, but looks like everything is leading to exactly what he talked about at first, and that was the relationship deterioration between him and Ben. Here's the issue for me, though. Like, when we were talking about this Steelers situation, Ben, well, me and AB are fine. We were at practice laughing, and he reached out to lay me up. No, you didn't. I told y'all he didn't, G. I told y'all the relationship was strained already. Like, AB wanted to be out of Pittsburgh. Look, Ben made two fatal mistakes that you can't make in the NFL. One, call your teammates out. Two, try to play a fake game and say y'all cool when you know y'all not. Those are, like, once that happens, that relationship between you and that player, whether it's business or personal, is gone. So that's what happened with him and AB. And now for him to come out and say this, as crazy as it was for AB and the things that he said, and by no means am I not giving him the foolishness that he was doing as well. But the part about Ben, I told y'all AB was not lying about it.
Right. And so where does this leave them, though? Because there have to be other players on that team who are aware of all of these dynamics, right? So where does that leave Roethlisberger and his ability to be the leader in that locker room as they try to sort of button up all this unbuttonedness that they've had?
Well, you know how I am about that leadership thing, right? And because Ben Roethlisberger has had so much success in Pittsburgh, people have a tendency to think that the quarterback is the leader. And maybe he is. I'm not saying I'm not in that organization. But here's what I will say. Guys are going to be very careful with their relationship with Ben, especially after coming out and saying he shouldn't have criticized AB's route running, that he probably went a little bit too far after denying all of those reports in the earlier months when all of this stuff was transpiring. So I don't know. They have a young team. A lot of guys are going to be looking for Ben for direction. Juju is stepping into the number one role as receiver there. They seem like they have a really good relationship. But as AB said, and maybe this is a prelude to the future, we have a good relationship till it ain't.
Yeah, we'll see where that thing goes. Again, still a lot of good players on that team, and Ben remains a very, very effective quarterback. We'll see if they can put it together. Meanwhile, we get back to our top story, and that is Steph Curry. 37 points, 13 rebounds, 11 dimes last night. According to Elias, it's the second most points in a series-clinching triple-double behind Larry Bird in 1984. So Steph was brilliant, and he wasn't the only Warrior with a triple-double. To me, the MVP of this series was Draymond Green, who also had one last night. He and Steph, the first teammates in NBA history to have triple-doubles in the same playoff game. And the Warriors also became the first team in over 20 years to come back from 15 down to win in 3 straight playoff games. I'll repeat this because I think it's incredible. They actually trailed for more minutes in this series than they led, and they swept the 4 games from Portland. It's incredible. And on that note, I want to bring in the one and only Stephen A. Smith, who's in Toronto with us this morning, getting set to cover Game 4 of the East. And Steve, we will certainly get to your interview with Magic Johnson in a moment. But first, I do want to let you chime in here on the Warriors. They're the first team to make it to the NBA Finals 5 consecutive years since the legendary Celtics of Bill Russell fame. What is your overriding thought on what the Warriors have accomplished to get to this place?
Well, it's tremendous. There's no doubt about it. I think they have the greatest shooter that we've ever seen, the greatest shooting backcourt with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson that we've ever seen in NBA history. They have an exceptional coach in Steve Kerr, who's proven yet again his greatness in terms of him maximizing the potential around him with those guys like Looney and Quinn Cook and McKinney and these others that have stepped off the bench and stepped into a huge pivotal role and played huge in the absence of Kevin Durant and Boogie Cousins to a lesser degree. And of course, course, the greatness of Draymond Green as well. This guy is a jump shot away from being, or receiving rather, the level of appreciation that he so richly deserves. He's a basketball savant in and of his own right. He's a point forward. He runs their offense. He spearheads their defense. He's the emotional, spiritual leader to a large degree, and you just can't say enough about the job that he's done. To go to the finals 5 straight years speaks to their intestinal fortitude, their commitment to excellence, and the fact that they've got a lion's heart, man. When you look at Steph and Clay and Dre and these boys, they're not scared of anybody. And I remember talking to Draymond earlier in the season, and when we saw the juggernaut that was the Houston Rockets, and they were coming, and he looked me dead in my face, and he said, 5 games, 6 tops. Don't even worry about it. I said, with the way James is playing, with CP3, if he's healthy, he said it doesn't matter. They don't have a chance. And sure enough, they didn't. So these are the kind of things that they just seem to know who they are, but they also seem to know who everybody else is in comparison to them. And then they go on the court and they show us.
And they got 9 days now before they will start the NBA Finals. We'll see about some of their injured players. Meanwhile, as far as the Magic Johnson thing, I mean, first and foremost, if all of us who do these kinds of shows, if our intention is to set the agenda for the sports conversation every day, congratulations to you and First Take, because you can't do it anymore than you did it yesterday with Magic. And here we are 22 hours or whatever it is, removed from that conversation. So that now that you've had that time to sort of reflect, what to you were the most important pieces of that conversation you had with him yesterday?
Well, from a macro perspective, as it pertains to the Lakers, you're looking at Jeannie Buss and her leadership in terms of accepting too many mouths in her ear, as Magic Johnson pointed out. And that's something that's going to be counterproductive to what they're doing. That's number one. Number two, you're looking at Rob Pelinka, and what Magic Johnson was willing to say about him publicly is something a lot of us have heard privately. And it's something myself and many others have shared with Rob Pelinka. Fair or unfair, true or untrue, that is the information that has been disseminated about him for years, and now it's coming home to roost. There's no question about that. Number three, you look at LeBron James, and you would think that Magic Johnson felt the need to have a conversation with them or to alert him as to what his intent was. Magic Johnson was unapologetic in how he went about doing it. He says, I don't have regrets in my life. I did me. I do what I do, and this is I did it my way. That was his approach. He told me he's going to talk to LeBron James in the very near future, but he and LeBron James have a good relationship. Speaking to LeBron James' camp, they have absolutely no problem with Magic Johnson. They understand that he felt the need to do what he did, and their words to me were, this is a relationship, talking about Magic Johnson and the Lakers, spanning 40 years. LeBron can appreciate that. He might have preferred to get a heads up, but he understands that when you have a 40-plus year relationship with an organization and a family business, then obviously things happen that are out of your control, and you being a first-year guy there, you might not be in a position to say or do but so much, which is why LeBron James has stayed out of it. The only other thing that I would peel from it is this. I see these narratives that have been put out there about Magic Johnson, and I didn't blame Magic Johnson one bit for saying what he said and for being as dogged as he was in his approach. Why? You're an owner of several businesses. You've established yourself as a premier businessman out of the sports field, thinking about all the things that Magic Johnson accomplished. And here you are, people are alluding to you being lazy and being asleep on the job. That's incredibly insulting, and it's incredibly hard to take and absorb. And when I spoke to Hall of Famers who are incredibly tight to Magic Johnson, and you can imagine who they are, I spoke to them last night. They said, that's Magic. If you think there's any way in hell that Magic was going to sit idly by and take that from people chirping about him behind his back, about who he is as a man, what his effort entails, etc., you don't know Magic Johnson, which is why it was great to see Pat Riley say, I'm not surprised at all, because Irvin is going to speak his mind. That is the Magic Johnson everybody knows, and that is the Magic Johnson that showed up on First Take yesterday.
Well, it was a riveting hour. There's no question of that. We're 7 minutes away from First Take. Stephen A. and company doing it again today. Thank you, Steve. See you tomorrow.
All right, y'all.
Stephen A. Smith with us again. They're just 7 minutes away. Meanwhile, we will get up with you again tomorrow morning, and with or without Kevin Durant, we'll tell you why no one will stop the Warriors. And maybe there'll be some dispute. Plus, John Morant will be here live in studio getting set, we assume, to be the second pick in the draft, and which player will be the key to Bucks Raptors. That and more tomorrow morning.